Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the December 6th meeting of the Hyde Park Planning Board. Please take note of all the exits around the room and now join me as we repledge our fealty to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda is continued public hearing for the Inn at BELLEFIELD. May I get a motion to reopen the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let me turn it over to you guys. Mr. Boudreau?
Thank you very much. We continue to make progress on our application, and again, I want to thank the board and all the support and the consultants for all the hard work everybody's doing. We're running around a lot. We're communicating a lot. We're addressing issues as they come up, and we're making some really good progress. So I don't really want to get into all the details, but I will, as a result of all this, share with you a few of the site plan changes as a result of some of the state's comments, and you'll see that in a minute. Chris, if you could go to the site plan. So go to grading plan, so we get that in there. Okay. This area here is an area that is defining where a cultural significant Roosevelt Foundation is, which is actually more on the west side. We avoided that the first time with our site plan. SHPO asked us to have no disturbance outside this line and then add 15 feet to it. So to avoid any mitigation. So it was the cleanest way to do it, to take this road here and put an S-curve in it, and then it lines up basically with the west side drive of the hotel. We'd have to put a stop sign here instead of it coming down, swooping around and around to the portico share. We just stop here, make a left, come up, and swing around. This avoids that whole area, and they thought that was a good solution to solve that problem. Go to the wastewater treatment plant. So here you might remember that the outfall for the wastewater treatment plant, as when we walked the site, was generally in this area here. Both DOH and the state wanted us to change it to have a direct discharge into the Marici Kill. So this is another change. This all remains the same. This drive here remains the same. We're meeting with DOT next week on both this drive and then the main access coming in. And then there's technical changes we're working through on the EAF, the noise study, and things like that.
Before we open it up for public comment, let me just review a few things. Mr. Boudreau and their biologist and I were at a meeting today with DEC, specifically with Rebecca Christ and John Petronella. The purpose of the meeting was really because we keep getting responses back from the DEC saying they need more information, and I needed to understand what that information was. So if I can summarize this as briefly as possible, in essence, this area, while it was investigated by their biologist as part of the summer investigation they did into endangered, threatened, and rare species likely habitat, it's recognized by their biologists, and really those of us who've been trained in this, that this would not be habitat itself in through this area. However, Blanding's turtles are known to wander, move around up to a mile, and there's been a sighting within 0.81 miles of this site. So what they're really looking for is a narrative that would explain what the potential impacts are from this development to what we'll call their behavior patterns. Not that this is habitat that would be taken, but that what could it do to the movement of the turtles themselves. In this instance, Blanding's turtles are known to wander everywhere and they're not afraid of people, so the biologist will be speaking to the environmental analyst. We met her today, Elena Burns. She's a replacement for Lisa Massey, who initially reviewed this, but is on maternity leave, which is why we've had this delay in time with the DEC. Fortunately, the DEC understands that this is a priority project for the Regional Economic Development Council, so we believe we're going to be getting some attention to this now, but it definitely helped being there face-to-face. I'll also add for the record that it was very pleasing to hear that despite the fact that they keep noting that you might need to get an incidental take permit, they want to avoid that. They want to get to a position, Ms. Chris said this specifically, where there is a no-take response provided to the planning board. So these are all good things. The other thing that is the other aspect of this I'll mention, and again, the biologist will be speaking with Ms. Burns, I hope on Friday, if not, then on Monday. But I believe he wants to get started on Monday. The other thing is the applicants have requested that they begin to remove some trees in the area of development, which would specifically be in this area where the wastewater treatment plant is, because there's been no logging or silviculture in this area where there has been where the hotel is proposed. In speaking to them, Ms. Van Tile is right. They don't really like to have any trees taken down these days between April 1st and November 1st as well. That's primarily because the Indiana bat that has potential habitat here is so small it can actually, it's not just exfoliating bark, it's almost any crevice they can get into. We were explained why the Indiana bat is important ecologically. That includes not just the fact that it does eat mosquitoes and other pests, it also consumes moth larvae that can destroy commercial crop production in this area. So that's why it's so highly valued. In addition, you also have northern long-eared bat per the EAF that would be likely habitat. So one thing we learned is that there are certain measures that the applicant can undertake, including a tree survey or what's called acoustic mapping. The tree survey would essentially say, these are the trees that could be great habitat for the bats, so we'll take them now down as quickly as possible. And then the acoustic mapping is something, because I'd never heard of it before, it's done the night before they remove trees, where someone goes out and makes sounds like a bat, and if the bat sounds back, then you can't do it, but if you hear silence, then you're okay. As I always tell people, you learn something new every day. Today I learned new things. So this is what they're going to be pursuing as we go along today. The other thing that's important to note is that, as Mr. Boudreau stated, SHPO has actually provided the planning board, it's not here, I'm sorry, with the hotel area. They now have a no adverse impact letter based on the project changes, so we can conclude that portion. What I'm hoping to do is conclude SECR on the 20th, if that's possible. This is going to involve some turnaround time between DEC and the applicants, or the Chazen biologist, to make sure they get the material that's necessary. But in essence, that's all I heard that was really necessary. In the meantime, the Speedies permit is also dependent upon this information being in there. They're granting the Speedies permit for first-timers. That's the state pollutant discharge elimination system. Ooh, good. There we go. At any rate, Speedies is what's going to be required for them to understand what the wastewater treatment plant will have to, what level it has to be cleaned up into. And Mr. Boudreau noted there that they're going to go for pretty high level, making sure that it's really high quality water that's discharged, which made the DEC happy as well to hear. So it was a 2-hour meeting, but that's pretty much the essence of it. And we all walked away knowing that there's a path forward. Yep. And I'm happy to say that they definitely seem to understand that this is a priority for the town as well. And I believe that we'll have quick responses back. I could cross my fingers and hope it's as fast as SHPO. That was pretty remarkable, I have to tell you. Congratulations, and very smart idea. In the interim, we've had letters we received back from Dutchess County Planning. I think it's important for you to respond, particularly to the addition. They would like an additional crosswalk. I'm sorry, it's not on this area, but it's basically
First,
where
go
the.
To the
okay. There you are. They'd like a crosswalk here, I believe. if my light will hold, here.
Yep.
And then they wanted to have drop curbs where the crosswalks are located around up there as well. They also discuss, or Ms. Lavarnway also discussed increasing the tree size because the size of the building at 5 stories is going to be so tall. She thinks that I believe it should be 5-inch diameter breast height caliper, and you proposed 2.5 to 3.5. That should be responded to. Also, she suggested recessed bulb lighting, which makes sense, particularly today when we were told that bats are particularly sensitive to light trespass and light pollution, and it interrupts their, it makes it worse for them. So also she discussed, and I know that I've raised this before, that she thinks it would be better if we had the, what I'll call the decorative pedestrian lighting that's on this side, or by the sidewalk, along the side of the front as well. Then the most important thing she asked for would be to flip the building around, and I'm going to leave that to the rest of the applicants. Yes, if you read it, she wanted the building to face the front. Personally, myself, I think we're too far along for that as we've gone along. In addition, while it's noted in her letter that we have done some things that we think improve the backside of it, so to speak, to face Route 9, she didn't think the porch was that important. I think it looks really nice on both sides myself. I do understand that the articulation is greater on the other side. It'd be nice. But I'll also point out that we're looking at this in isolation. Right now, you just have the hotel facing blank. But at some point, this is supposed to be facing something as well. There's supposed to be a dialogue between the buildings as we go. And so long as we've satisfied ourselves that we have adequate screening for the building, but so you can still see an attractive building, I think we're doing the right job that we're assigned to do up here. The other 2 points that are fairly minor, one is which is the waste receptacle is located here. This means that the trash hauler would have to come and go right through your front parking area each time they came to pick up a load because they're front loaders. That's how they operate up in this county at any rate. We were thinking you might want to look in this area. This way it could use the back side, go up, back out, and then go that way back out. It's up to you. It's just, we were thinking about the aesthetics and what your enjoyment, the guests would be enjoying from the front. Then, well, this is supposed to be for emergency access only rather than full access at this point. I think at some point that would be, but I mean, that's up to your hauler. I don't think the turn here would be the easiest for a truck like that. So again, it's minor. It's just for you guys to consider. And last, when we had our agenda meeting, Ms. Moss pointed out that this is a lower elevation than this and would like to see some of the landscaping brought up. And this is, of course, a code requirement that we have screening between non-residential and residential uses, and this is a residential use over here, and these are all residences. So we'd like to see some of the proposed trees moved up into this area. In addition, Ms. Moss would like to, I think, these are just trees, and we would see mowed. She thinks that there should be some shrubs put in through here. We usually like natives like amelanchier or serviceberry, something that would, again, not occlude the view, but because, again, this is lower, this is higher. Last, I just want to point out again, I think I've already done this for the record, the hotel was proposed roughly over this area. Much has been made in the county planning letter, as well as by others, that this flip of a 5-story building from here to here, is a more visual, it's a visual change, because what was proposed there was 2- and 3-story. But I want to point out that this is an even higher elevation. By moving this here, you're actually reducing the overall impacts you'd be seeing from potentially across the river, et cetera, and we know from your discussion that you're considering a smaller, say, 60-room boutique hotel in this area. So we would still, this roadway would lead up to it. You'd still have the strong architectural statement. I believe if it's the same group, Mr. Hoy already knows what we're looking for here because of the way we work together. So that's all I have to begin. Let me go over, sorry, noise mitigation plan we'll be discussing tonight. So let me start with Ms. Axelson. Any comments?
Really just to update the board that we have sent the noise mitigation plan around and gotten some feedback and made some changes to it. And in the latest round, Jennifer Van Tile raised the concern about the average measurements. So I would like to talk to George Schmidt tomorrow about that, if possible. And then I've had some long calls with Debbie Hubbard about the EAF and narrative and related plan elements, and also with Chris today to just go over some remaining comments. So we're trying to get those ironed out.
Perfect, and thank you. And yes, Ms. if everyone had a chance to see Ms. Van Tile's edits, you're right, it did say 4 in the actual FEIS. That seems a bit overkill to me, so I would defer also to our legal counsel as to whether or not we have to follow it to the letter, but I know that you don't like a procedural defect any more than we do, so I'm willing to do anything we need to make sure that we have a perfect case in case we ever have to defend it. Mr. Sotero, any comments?
To follow up on Liz's comments, we're going to issue a letter on Friday. Our comments are minor. Chasen's done a really good job as far as addressing, our prior comments. The stormwater pollution prevention plan is in really good shape, just a couple really small things. Of course, now having said that, one thing that we discussed last Thursday at our agenda meeting was, and I never saw this, before, but the access road that goes out to Dorsey Lane, right now it's, I guess, technically an emergency access, but at some point it's going to become a major thoroughfare. Well, as we were sitting there looking at the overall plans, I noticed that there's a house directly across the street that is right smack in front of where the driveway is going to be coming out. And I never noticed it before. But I think it's something we should discuss and look at. Of course, I've probably been by there 5 times since our last meeting on, Thursday, and I keep telling myself I gotta, look at it, and I never do. But I don't remember the elevation of the house kind of in relation to, the road. I don't know if it's higher or whatever, but I think it's just something that we need to look at because obviously we don't want to, potential major road in the future with lights shining in, right, directly in somebody's house. So I just think it's something that we need to look at and, consider. I'm not saying it needs to be resolved if we're going to think about conditional, but I think in the next couple of weeks, I think we all should be able to resolve it. So
Ms. Dexter grew up there, and the house is kind of tucked down in?
Yes, it's that wooden house, I think? Or are you?
I think that's right, yeah.
Yes, and that one's part of, it's now called Old Dorsey or
Yeah,
whatever.
the access
So it's
point
right
where
where
it
it
comes off.
merges, yes.
Right, the access point
Yeah.
comes off of that little
Yeah, but it's
road
kinda
that goes
tucked
behind
in.
the apartments.
Right,
But it faces Dorsey.
okay. We'll have to, obviously, we'll
I'm
have to
just-
take another look.
No, we'll go take a look.
I'm just saying we
It
should go
hasn't
look
hopped
at
out
it.
at me either, so,
I never noticed it before on the plan that there was a house right across the street there from the, from the entrance. But
Thank you. And
Just so that everybody knows, the location is between 2 high points, so it just kind of fits right in
yeah,
there.
no, I mean, I
So
understand.
if we're gonna move it, it would have to go, east.
I'm not sure we're proposing anything that drastic.
No,
Yeah, no.
no, I'm just saying if it,
you picked a
can't.
natural
I mean, we're not
spot.
talking about, if we were even thinking about quote unquote moving it, I don't think we're
Okay.
we're not talking like 50 feet. We're talking something minor, and maybe we don't even, I'm just saying we should look at it. In your travels,
Yeah, fine.
you should look at it, and I'm gonna look at it, I promise. And, we should just regroup a little bit on it, but it's not a big deal. You have
Okay.
other fish in the pan to fry, so.
And the high points continue on the other side of Dorsey because Old Dorsey is actually cut between 2 mounds of rock outcrop.
Yeah, it's the optimal, location for the access road. There's no doubt about it. It's just, we just need to look at it, that's all.
Okay.
Sure.
All right.
Mr. Rodenhouse, any comments?
The only other new thing that came in today to my desk was this letter from DCWA, which I'm just asking, can we just assume that's being taken care of somewhere else? Because it seemed to be a misunderstanding of what this project was at this point, that this is not a subdivision. But it did seem to raise the question of whether there's a plan to connect beyond this, and does that raise a seeker issue that we need to be aware of, or is it something totally different? I'm just asking the question. I'd like to know that, so when we do the seeker review, we handle it properly.
Well, I brought that up, yeah, that's something that I had spoken to the supervisor about, and I have put it in some prior, letters that, throughout, my time here, there's always been, you know, a thought about, hey, you know, at some point, some of those properties down there, they do have water quality issues. I know at the gym, they have a lot of chloride issues there. There's Hess, or whatever it is now, they have, you know, chloride problems. They have a major treatment system. So, you know, and really, this is not the town that would ever do, you know, the water district. As everybody knows, you know, the town has turned all their water and sewer districts over to the Dutchess County Water and Wastewater Authority. So this is really something that is on the Water Authority's plate. And I know that Chazen has met with them, and I had told Larry that I'm just going to leave it up to them. I mean, you know, if they think they may have customers in the future, then somebody should look at, hey, can we at least get, you know, the on-site line to a point where it could be picked up relatively easy if in the future they ever wanted to extend the line, and if that's something the Water Authority wanted, I assume they would have to have an easement over the line and possibly take ownership of it. But again, I think that's like in their court.
So to clarify for everyone, the water line is being brought to somewhere around here, I believe, Larry. It's being extended around the hotel as a courtesy, so that if DCWWA wanted to bring the water line here and then down Dorsey and down this way, where the water quality issues for those properties are, then that would be possible. So that was my initial response to Ms. Barkley, the director. Then she wrote back and questioned whether or not DCWWA would be offered to operate this water system. And I said, that's not something we've discussed thus far. As far as I understand, it was going to be a private water system. And she asked about the possibility whether you were going to form a T Corp, and I said, not for this application. There is no subdivision. So, and that was something that changed along the way for the project in order to make this go a little bit faster. So they're just looking at that, so you're aware of it. In terms of seeker, I'm not really sure I understood whether there's a seeker issue on the water. Did you say that her letter raised a seeker issue?
Well, I just want to have clarity that that is not part of this project. It's a totally separate project, which is not dependent on this.
No.
It may be dependent on this project, but this project is not dependent on that one going forward.
No.
We're just trying to plan for the future in
Okay,
case there's
so
any.
even though it's happening more or less at the same time, questions are being raised, it's not part of this project.
No.
And they have no plans to do anything
Right.
yet. I mean, they're just, again, it's just, you know, planning, so that if there is ever the possible extension south on, 9, then they have a place where they can tap. Because right now, this project is tapping the water line. I don't even think it's on this page,
It
right,
is
Larry? It's
down
quite a
No,
ways
it's not,
up.
but we can show it to you.
Well, no, it's,
Oh, yeah, keep going back.
A little too
No,
far.
it's next one.
just use it, this is fine.
It's right here.
Yeah.
It's
There.
right
Yep.
there.
Yeah, so they're gonna go bring that into the site, and, you know, they're gonna bring it in through their site to, the hotel.
Right. We had it ending here,
Yes.
Right.
and then we.
You brought it up to the road.
It's
I mean,
That's
Here
what
now.
my response to Ms. Barkley was about, that we feel as though the applicants have already done a very nice thing for future planning to bring it to the point where they brought it. I think her question was also, could we just compel you to bring it to here, maybe blunt?
well, but honestly, I mean, they have to give approval as far as, the water tap. So, I mean, they have approval here. So if this is something that they feel is necessary for the future, I think they should ask for it, to extend it down there. I don't think it's in our court to
I agree.
ask
Yeah.
for it.
So,
So consider this a heads up, they may be asking.
yep, we got it.
Given the fact that it's been in the record now, I think it should be addressed and dealt with.
Yes.
Which we can do, you can do. So the other question I had was, there are some things that are called for in Rebecca's letter, and other issues I keep hearing about, maybe on conditional. Well, let's assume, for purposes of discussion of a schedule, that there's enough information before the board to make a determination of significance next meeting on the 20th, and that's a negative declaration, perchance. If it is, then the board is free to proceed with some sort of action. And if it wants to do an approval, are we thinking of a conditional approval, for an approval without conditions.
I
on a
believe we're
project.
thinking of a conditional approval.
And so if we're thinking of a conditional approval, I'm wondering, what's the intention with regard to this issue of cutting trees without a final site plan approval? Is it the assumption that we'll be able to do a conditional approval, not sign a plan until the conditions are met, and yet go ahead with the cutting of trees?
The applicant will be proceeding at their own risk in this case, but DEC in both Rebecca's, well, not this one, I'm sorry, in the initial letter said straight out, no tree clearing until all permits are provided. That means their permits, which include speedies.
Right.
It's, I think the earliest that she
Until
thought.
seeker is done.
Yeah, well, seeker must be done, or the application can't be complete for a speedies permit. So what they're thinking is that the earliest date, I believe, would be sometime in mid-January, and that's the earliest date she thought. But that's why I mentioned publicly this tree surveying. So what they want to avoid is that there's an entire clear-cut area.
Right.
But certain of the trees don't have to necessarily be, they're not protected in terms of being likely habitat for the bats. So the trees that are likely habitat, if they could get those done now, again, selectively, and this would be based on a tree inventory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I'm only raising the
Yep.
town question, the town issue. As a planning board, do we allow tree cutting when they only have conditional site plan approval?
generally speaking, we do not.
And that's why I'm raising the question.
Yes, I know. And I've been trying to figure out a mechanism under which they would be allowed to proceed. The only thing I can think of is that would be at their own risk, and if they did not fulfill the conditions of the plan, so it was never signed, they would have to put things back the way they were, which means put in really tall trees. But I'm operating on the assumption that they're going to try to get those conditions met as soon as possible. I know from the meeting today, as I said, we walked away knowing that there is a path forward and one to keep on a more aggressive, I'll call it, timeline.
Okay.
And the DEC, I won't say agreeing, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but discussing ways in which trees could be removed, gave me the kind of idea that if they can get my signature on the plan set by March 1st, they could then take care of the rest of the trees during that time period. In addition, there's even a way, Ms. Chris discussed, that you can extend the time period out. By that, we mean that the northern long-eared bat does not have the same protection status and protection measures as the Indiana does. You can take those trees down pretty much any time. I know this is a long discussion on trees, sorry,
Well-
but it's an important one in terms of seeker as well, because that's what the same kind of information they want to have known beforehand. So I think this is something we can certainly discuss.
I think I guess, following up on that, the fewer conditions we can have on the approval, the better.
Yes,
Which I'm only saying that in terms of the next 2 weeks.
Right.
To the extent we can do a deed restriction, whatever these relatively simple documents are, although there's no time, but knocking these out ahead of time would be better than having the usual 48 conditions that make it sound like we're not really halfway there or even a quarter of the way there. You know what I mean? That if we have 3 conditions or 10 conditions, maybe that's a different story than having 40 conditions.
Right, I think it would be our intention over the next 2 weeks to really tie down the tree issue. I think that
Oh, absolutely.
all of our discussions were never about a profligate tree clearing effort. I think what we were all saying is that even from a general environmental point of view, it's more protective for the environment to do selective cutting and clearing when the ground is frozen. It's better all around. So it's almost an environmental protective measure to do clearing in that season. I agree, we certainly don't want to, we want to limit the number of conditions. I think on the deed restriction, we have a concern. We don't necessarily object to a deed restriction, but as you know, there were some other options given us by SHPO to deal with protecting the Roosevelt compound. And certainly, no one can do anything in that area without coming back to this board for a site plan approval. So it's not like anything can really happen there. We would just want to preserve the option that if there is a deed restriction, that it could be addressed and complied with by means of the protective measures that SHPO authorizes, as well as by doing nothing in the event that that makes sense in the future. But I agree. I think we're certainly willing to work in the next 2 weeks very diligently to limit the list of conditions and hopefully develop the path forward on the trees a little more specifically with DEC and Rebecca Chris, so that we can all be very clear on what the conditions are.
I should have added that Rebecca stated very clearly today that they would like a note on the plan set as regards when trees can be removed and cannot. Any of these things that we can take care of in advance to get you through the DEC is probably prudent to do. And I think that we should maybe let the two attorneys discuss a path forward on possibly allowing tree removal based on conditional site plan as requested in your narrative with the FEAF. And with that, I also will add, for everyone in the audience, what they're talking about is SHPO requested a restrictive covenant placed around, it's the Walton Roosevelt farmstead. And you can, if you want to Google, you can find out who he was, but this is a direct ancestor to the president, and he was somewhat prominent at the time as well, friendly with all sorts of bigwigs during that time. Having walked this site, there's nothing left of it, but it is eligible as noted for the National Historic Registry, which is why they're being more protective of it. I'll also add that this must be something that's fairly, it was known years back, but I guess it wasn't eligible for the registry yet because SHPO did not have any of these comments when we reviewed this beforehand. Also last, I want to bring this up too. I keep saying last, it's never last. But I learned today we learned one other thing, and it's just, I'm going to put it into the record so that if I'm hit by a bus tomorrow, everybody else up here will know. You're going to have to go through what we're going through right now with the DEC for every little phase you want to go through in terms of the impact on Blanding's turtles. So what was strongly suggested to us by Ms. Christ, and I agree, in order to speed this through, because we want to make sure that this goes faster next time, because you'll have presumably the wastewater treatment plant, which cuts a lot of things shorter. You should probably go in with a fully laid out concept plan with the whole thing to show them, where you can then let them do a findings. Ms. Chris was very specific today. That's why I called our attorney, but I couldn't get in touch with them. Seeker is not completed, according to her, until every involved agency who has permitting authority makes their own findings. DEC never made findings on this project because the concept was submitted, but no actual plan was submitted to them, i.e. site plan or final development plan. So they haven't done their findings on it yet. So if you want to if you want it to go quicker through DEC next time, they need to evaluate all of this. It doesn't, for them, it's not so much a matter of what the uses are, say a hotel versus retail, et cetera. It's the disturbance to the area. And again, this is a disturbance we're talking about for migrating of the Blanding's turtles, as well as the two bat species. So that's my strong recommendation. And again, I don't know whether they today seem to indicate they like the idea of the restrictive covenant being placed on the Walton Roosevelt farmstead area. But that's, again, something that they offered other paths. SHPO itself did too. And I didn't realize until now that DEC and SHPO are really working hand in hand these days, much more closely than in years past.
It isn't her letter. So you need to get the clarification if it is changed, that another alternative is available to you. But the latest thing we have is Rebecca's letter that says the restriction is needed. Then
I don't think we're disputing the restrictive covenant. I think we're just pointing out the language of that would also incorporate the specific language that was in the SHPO letter.
Oh, okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. And although she does ask for that larger narrative on the Blanding's turtles and other issues to make a finding, she did say that the neg deck on the Phase 1A would be satisfactory. Yeah. So I think we're clear on that.
The other thing we worked through is the flow letters. Basically, Department of Health, because this is, I think, several components ultimately, Department of Health gave them a flow for one phase that if it's all utilized, would be servicing, that's the 110,000, I think, gallons. 114. That's and there's 23,000 for just the hotel. 22, sorry. So you're going to get a revised letter from Department of Health because all they're going to permit with Speedies is just the hotel effluent, obviously, because the rest of it's not built. That's just a housekeeping thing that we worked out today. So, and thank you. Then let me start to my right. Ms. DiNapoli, any comments?
Well, I've learned a lot about tree removal and the movement of the turtles, more than I thought I was going to tonight. I would like to just spend a quick, brief moment on the DC Planning's comment, particularly about a few things. One, their recommendations for the landscaping and lighting. It makes sense. It would be protective of light if you have more recessed light, I thought. But I'm not a light expert. It's just what sounds reasonable to have the lighting more recessed. Also to have taller trees to kind of, cut the view shed a little would be good. I feel bad that the comments came so late in the process, because I personally do believe it is very late in the process to ask you to consider flipping the building. I think that's something that several of us on the board have thought and have suggested in the past. For many reasons, it never quite got done. But I think it's something that I hope in the future the DEC will respond earlier, and it's comments that we might be able to take into consideration at that time.
Yes, I more or less assured DC Planning that with the next application, we'll work them into an offline meeting earlier, which means that we won't really be referring to 239M. We'd be just having you guys probably directly deal with and making a submission, because otherwise it starts the deadlines and dates, et cetera. Because that's what they would have liked to have done. But I did point out to Dutchess County Planning that when the concept plan was approved, they gave us almost no comments. Now, at the time, the county still owned the land, maybe that's why, but I wasn't aware that they were going to be taking a huge position on this, particularly not with turning the hotel around. Had I known, we would have brought them in earlier. At any rate, thank you, Diane. Anything else?
Just basically, I would ask that you review their comments and take them seriously. I'm not asking for any redesign, but something for you to think about as you look at the west side of the building.
Thank you. Mr. Oliver?
My comments are also in regard to the Dutchess County Planning letter. I agree with the caliper of the tree size with the scale of the building. I think the landscaping will make a greater impact initially. And I also agree with their lighting comment. And I think with the flipping the building, we worked together on a lot of different designs, and I think we came to agree on something that I'm still very happy with, so thank you.
Ms. Dexter?
I would concur with my colleagues, but I guess what I was really surprised about with the DC Planning comment about flipping the building was that the Greenway guidelines talk specifically about keeping the parking away, and so when they said that, I'm like, okay, now you're going to have all the parking along Route 9, which goes directly against the Greenway guidelines, so perhaps they had a moment and forgot that was, generally they're beating us up because all of our projects don't do this. So I was just shocked that that was their comment. So I would say that it is way too late in the game to even consider that, and I don't think this board would have even considered it to begin with. It's not how we're trained.
Parking should not dominate a site. To clarify, her letter did suggest that they just add one row of parking that could be disguised, but why would you want lights shining up from above down into?
Again, that's completely goes against Greenway.
Thank you. Mr. Pickett?
The county had asked that their walkways be provided, I believe it was to logging trails or something. Is that?
That's more from the Scenic Hudson letter. Mr. Anzalino is here tonight, I think. Yes.
There he is.
Is that reasonable, or what we don't want to do is having walkways created to an area and then have it be redone later on. I'm just looking at not doubling up on any work in the future, so whatever the layout plan is there
We know
might
that-
be identified or reviewed.
Yeah, we'll definitely use those areas where practical, when we're laying everything out.
Okay. The other one was EV charging stations, electric vehicle. It would be, attract those Tesla drivers, to stay there. So it'd be a lot cheaper to do when you've got a green field that you're working with instead of trying to redo it later on. So just thought.
Thank you. Mr. Murphy?
Yeah,
Oh,
Bill,
yes, go ahead.
Let's let Bill respond.
I was just going to say that we have 4 planned at the hotel.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
All you do is go out and buy the car.
The new, less expensive version of that Tesla. Mr. Murphy, comments?
Yeah, I agree with everybody about the lighting, the trees, and the building, the way it faces is, I think, the proper way.
Thank you. And Ms. Weiser?
I concur with my colleagues and have nothing to add.
Thank you. So I think you heard that you need to put in bigger trees, and you should examine the lighting that's proposed. No one really weighed in on, do you guys think that it's important to have the lower scale lighting, the more decorative, attractive, rather than the Cobra lamps on this side? Or,
what'll happen is it'll increase the number of poles.
I know.
Right.
I know. That's why I was asking. I raised this at the agenda meeting, but of course the full board wasn't there, and Ms. Moss, Diana, I believe, and Ann and I were the ones attending, along with Mr. Rodenhausen and Liz?
Yeah, we were there.
Yeah, what am I saying? And anyway, we all seem to be okay with it, staying over there, because it's meant to sort of demarcate the fact that cars are here, to explain to
So keep the
you.
Cobras there?
Yeah, to keep the Cobras there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so I think, so it's a matter of looking at changing a style so that you could have a recessed bulb. It may be an option on that one so that there's less light pollution coming out for residents.
Just
Then-
a clarification on the trees, the 5-inch caliber,
It's really big.
we rarely spec out a 5-inch caliber because of the cost. This way a 2.5, 3-inch caliber tree grows in, it fits its space better that way. But maybe right in front of the building, maybe that might be the spot to do
I don't
it.
think you have to put them everywhere, just take a look at sensitive areas where you could put
No,
them.
not everywhere.
And
So that
maybe
they'll
not, maybe
frame-
not even 5, maybe
Four.
three, yeah,
4.
3.5,
3.5 to
4.
4.
I think 5 is a little bit.
I'll be honest,
Extreme.
the only place I see 5 is when you go out to the Hamptons where people want instant landscaping because they can afford it. And the root balls on those,
They're-
Oh, geez.
huge,
They're-
they're massive. I mean, it'd be really difficult to get them onto this site.
Right, right.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, Ms. Lavornway is also a landscape architect by training too, just like you. So, at any rate, so then let me open this up for public comment, if you don't mind, clearing a little space for people. Would anyone like to come up and speak about this application? Come on up.
There you go.
Just state your name for the record, even though most of us know you.
Good evening, my name is Jeffrey Anzavino. I'm the Director of Land Use Advocacy at Scenic Hudson.
Please make sure that you're speaking into the microphone.
Oh, right.
Thank you. Would you like me to start again?
No,
No.
that's
Okay.
fine.
This project is arguably the most important development site in Hyde Park. In addition to its large 339-acre size, its location at the Southern Gateway provides the visitor an important first impression when approaching Hyde Park's historic core, and in particular the FDR Home and Library and Wallace Center. Scenic Hudson is encouraged that the applicant is moving ahead with the Inn at Bellefield as the first phase of a larger development. The project has the potential to be an important contributor to the town's and region's tourist economy. The location of the hotel at this prominent location at the southern gateway to the town and the FDR properties along Route 9 across from the Culinary Institute of America will create a cohesive visual frame for visitors as they enter the town. And we commend the developer for working with the town so that it can provide sorely needed wastewater treatment infrastructure to serve the development. Staff has reviewed the open development plan and site plan in the context of the Bellefield plan, A collaborative planning document included Scenic Hudson, the town of Hyde Park, the National Park Service, and others. The Bellefield Plan offers a vision for Hyde Park's southern gateway by combining the preservation of historic attractions anchored by the FDR Home and Library with expansion, deepening, and invigoration of the town's economic base. It envisions a larger parcel in which this is a part of as an important gateway to the town. It also identifies this parcel as a good place for a traditional neighborhood-style development that relates to the town's historic core farther north along Route 9 and to the CIA across the highway. The Inn at Bellefield is proposed to be sited at the southwest corner of the site. While a change from the previously approved concept of retail and offices at this location, this is still consistent with the Bellefield Plan. In this context, we hope that the planning board and applicant will consider these comments that we believe would strengthen the project and enhance its consistency with the Bellefield Plan. Pedestrian, this is all consistent with the letter that we had sent. Pedestrian connections, the connections shown on the current plan will help pedestrians to access the different portions of the site and to get off-site locations. The inclusion of the sidewalks along Route 9 frontage and addition of sidewalks across Route 9 at the project entrance will create a better pedestrian connectivity to the CIA and to Hyde Park's historic core. We also understand that an unpaved trail is planned between the hotel and West Dorsey Lane. This connection has the potential to serve people, particularly future hotel employees walking from housing or public transportation. Scenic Hudson suggests that the planning board and applicant consider whether the potential demand for people walking onto the site from this location warrants a more formal, possibly paved pathway that is maintained, including snow removal, year-round. On-site connections to trails. The potential to offer trail connections to the FDR and Valkill sites and the site's other open space resources are important aspects of the development and should be a selling point for people choosing to stay at the hotel. Scenic Hudson suggests that access to the existing system of trails and logging roads be provided during subphase 1A if possible, and we are interested in providing technical support to the applicant to achieve that. In addition, crosswalks should be provided across hotel parking lots and access drives to connect to these trails. Even if this trail access is temporary, pending subsequent phasing, we believe it would provide a valuable amenity for hotel guests. I understand the concern about doing things twice. However, this is really only some paint that would provide temporary access, and who knows how long it will be before the next phase is actually done. So we hope you would consider that. The corner radii, the large corner radii at intersections in the internal road network are likely to result in people driving too fast as they approach the hotel. In order to create a safer, more walkable place, we recommend tightening the turning radii where possible and adding internal crosswalks in a manner consistent with emergency vehicle access requirements. This really relates to subsequent phasing, not so much the phase right now, but it's important that subsequent phases of the development are designed following a traditional neighborhood design as envisioned in the previously approved PUD in 2007. In order to achieve this, the hotel site should be integrated into a future grid of streets, and buildings should be close to the roads, which should be designed to include sidewalks and street trees. So to conclude, Scenic Hudson is encouraged by the efforts of the town and applicant to take advantage of the site's unique location and features, and hopes that these comments may further strengthen the project and help ensure its consistency with the Bellefield Plan to create a truly welcoming gateway to Hyde Park's historic core.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Anzavino. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Same here. Would you like some copies of this statement?
Sure.
I think we got them already.
It's not the precise, yeah, it's a little different than the letter.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
Would anyone else like to speak about this application from the public? There being none, come let's gather back up. So, I believe we discussed whether this connection in through here, the trail would be paved. I think because of the grading, it would be very difficult to do so, to keep it, is what we discussed. In addition, the loop system, we also received comments from John Ando, who's the new transit administrator, and he suggested having the applicant place a bus stop here with appropriate signage, et cetera. This is a formal county bus stop at the moment, but the way the loop bus system works is if someone's there and someone's there and someone's there, it stops for each person. In addition, the loop, you can say, instead of stopping here, can you take me to this entrance? So in the event of bad weather, employees could be taken here and on to the hotel. They would walk up then to the hotel. But I think that for the future, as this develops out, one of the things Mr. Ando also wrote was that we should consider a sidewalk along Dorsey. And I've walked the site now to look, I should have looked at the house, sorry, but I walked the site. You could put a sidewalk in through there. In a couple of places, it's tough because the rock outcrop is so close to the road. There's not a lot of room, but it's something for the board, for a future board to consider as there's more development, particularly as I pointed out in an email, once you have the housing back here, it's very conceivable that people would want to walk for exercise down to take advantage of the businesses, the gym, the CIA, eateries, anything in through there. So this is something for a board to consider. And at that point, we might want to also consider making this a more formalized path. It's kind of shown roughly right here, right now, and I don't mean just the rough trail, but you haven't worked out all the details specifically yet because of the contours of the land. We're trying to avoid real development in this area because we can't do real development in this area. We're not supposed to have buildings or parking, et cetera, so we don't want to try to tear too much up. But for the rest of it, you'll be able to respond to Mr. Enzavino's comments and his letter before the next meeting. Anything else for now from anybody? Anything else you got to conclude with before we see you again in 2 weeks?
The responses you want by when?
As soon as you can get them, but some of them, you had a very detailed response to the last Morris Associates memo.
Right.
They were on FEAF. You'll be issuing a new memo. As you said, it'll be shorter soon, and we're going Friday. So if you can respond, your legs wagging. I know this is all on a tight timetable. I apologize.
Yeah. So we all the letters will respond to.
Yeah, you've been giving us, by the way, back and forth
Right.
pretty fast on this. I know this is a priority project for you, just like for the regional EDC. So the faster we have it, the easier it will be for Mr. Rodenhausen and Ms. Van Tile to work on the resolution and conditions. And the more, as George said, that we can take care of, the better in advance.
Is there going to be a response to Rebecca Christ's letter from the applicant?
Yes, we'll do that.
I would expect that you're going to have a new letter from Ms. Christ as well, based on information that you're going to provide both to us.
So that we want to try to get nailed down as soon as possible, whatever the back and forth is.
Okay. Did you want to meet on the landscaping? You had suggested that?
I'd love to, but that's not too critical if you want to do that next week.
Okay.
I feel like this week is already piled up with other things that need
All right,
your attention more, particularly the DEC
we'll
stuff.
coordinate that next week.
Okay.
But we certainly need a final plan before, and we can't close the public hearing until we have it, so we're looking at next week for that, next meeting. Having the
Yes,
final
so
plan
if we could
as
have,
soon as
if we could have a final plan before the end of next week, that would give us actually not that much time in which to try to,
The weekend, though.
yeah.
If it comes in before the weekend, for me, that's always best.
Yes.
Next
same with
Wednesday.
We
me.
can get it a week from Friday, is that? Yeah.
We may have to change our agenda meeting to a Monday before the planning board instead of that Thursday, because we wouldn't have
Right.
an opportunity to meet to discuss.
So I'm going to ask Chris, can we get it in a week from Friday? There you go.
Good answer, Chris. Good answer.
There you go.
Okay, I know, as I said, I know it's ambitious to set a schedule like this, and part of this is beyond our control. It will be the DEC. But again, after meeting today, I had a lot more clarity than just saying we need more information. I mostly know what you guys need to provide. You're going to get more specifics, more granular when you talk to Elena, and that's really it. So
They were very helpful. They were, I was telling Bellefield, they were looking for solutions to our problems, you know, with the clearing. They came up with an excellent solution for the select cut, you know, as long as we go out there, look at it.
And it was reiterated there'll be no grubbing or anything like that. This is just felling trees. That's it. And I would say that they were very helpful. I'm not sure it was that I think it might have been helpful that we went through, or that I went through the county executive and deputy county executive to make sure the meeting got set up, because I wasn't getting a response. And that's why it was reiterated that this is a priority project, and now it's labeled as such. That's why Mr. Petronella, and as I said, for those of us who've been up here a while, when we started, both Rebecca and John were environmental analysts, and they've graduated far beyond that now. So it was actually a pleasure to go back over there and meet with them again, and hear that they think that Hyde Park is still doing a good job, by the way. And they are not, again, they're looking, she specifically stated they're looking to get to a no-take response. So that's what I was encouraged by. If there's nothing else, then you guys have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of reading to do when you send responses. So may I get a motion to adjourn this to December 20th?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're going to keep the public hearing open?
Absolutely, that's what we just adjourned it. Part of this is that the public is allowed, the public should have the ability to see any new information, and this is going to be new information, and I don't want to create a procedural defect here today by doing that. So this is just, given that we've only had Mr. Anzavino, Tina Cutzen at this point comment, and we haven't had a lot of public comment, I'm not sure we're going to hear any more, but it's what we should do prudently. And I'll add, just in case people think that we seem to be rushing this through, this had extensive public hearings. We were part of them way back when. I mean, most of those, and all those comments were responded to at the time. For that matter, today, the DEC, they noted there was a lot of comments back then. They asked me how many we had this time, and I said we had 9 speak in favor and 1 speak more or less not necessarily in favor, just questioning some things, and that was it. So it's not, it seems as though
There had been hundreds
yeah,
the
and
first time around.
correct. So I think that I'm hoping that means the public is trusting the planning board as we are right now to know that we're doing the right thing, and that I think most people believe this is a positive project. I know that this has been, where are we? There we are. This has been shown to the Chamber of Commerce several times. They've spoken in favor of it, and we had people looking at this from a regional perspective who spoke last time, including Mary Kay Verba, who's head of Dutchess County Tourism, basically saying, get it done and get it done fast. So we're doing our best, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yep. Thank you
Thanks
very much.
again. The next item on the agenda is a continued public hearing for Creek Park Mobile Home Park. The applicants are seeking to add a 22nd mobile home to a site where there is a permit for 22. This is going in a new location. Since our last meeting, the applicants were before the Zoning Board of Appeals. They received their area variance. If you all had a chance to read the area variance, it's somewhat conditioned on landscaping and improvements that we were discussed with Mr. Povell. He's here tonight, and just I was having funny internet access, Wi-Fi. In my city apartment where I was on Monday and Tuesday, it kept saying you're connected, but no internet. Connected to Wi-Fi, but no internet. So I don't have no idea. We're trying to solve it now, but I only got Mr. Povell sent me a concept drawing with new landscaping, and I had sent him a note about having done the site walk with Mr. Sotero. If you all recall, the main issue that was raised by neighbors last time were really drainage issues.
Right.
And these are not, as I more or less stated for the record, this would not be exacerbated by the addition of one new trailer home. What the problem appears to be is that on the west side of 9G, there's a drain. You go under, you go underneath 9G, and then that goes, then south underneath that Creek Road spur, I guess I'll call it. And then where you already have drainage coming along the east side of 9G as it goes down toward Creek, it all converges in one area. And I guess in terms of high inundation, it's going to go down and flood. So
Plus the
Well, there's
pervious.
another.
yeah,
There's
yeah.
right
All
in
going
here,
into that.
there's.
So we're going to discuss that, but there's also kind of a mini wetland when I looked at the vegetation
Yep.
that is on land that the town appears to own. It's on the, I know. So where it started with I think a P, Percoy, the house that gets the worst flooding, adjacent to his site is a little bit of town land, I guess, that was dedicated when that area of Creek Road became paved and then offered
we'll
to the
have look
town.
at it, I don't know.
But that's now basically a little wetland based on the vegetation that I saw there. So, I mean, small. And then the water it seems to just go that direction and then,
Well, we have a town drain that actually intercepts that small area and takes it across Creek Road, but, you know, the pipe that we have there is only probably a 12-inch pipe at, the most, and really, when it goes across the street on Creek, it goes down through other people's,
Just dumps it, right?
property, so there's really not an opportunity to, like, increase, our system, and, the elevations are pretty flat on the other side. So I sent an email to the regional maintenance engineer at the Department of Transportation, and I haven't heard back from him, but I will follow up with him because, I don't know, maybe there's something we can do on the west side of 9G. I believe, Michael, you checked, that's all federal land, so it's not like privately owned.
and it looks like it's seasonally flooded itself, like
Yeah,
it could be wet.
so, I mean, I have a few thoughts. We'll have to talk to the Department of Transportation, but the way I understand, I wasn't here at the last public hearing, is that I don't think the mobile home park gets flooded, right?
No, it's just the house just to the east.
Right.
The first two houses,
Right.
actually, a gentleman
Guys
came
that are
from,
right in.
yeah, a
there.
gentleman came from another house, the third house down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who said, no, I don't flood, and I think you guys are doing a better
Yeah.
job with the new trailers.
So it's.
One thing I
homes.
noticed in that area that you're talking about is I noticed a lot of cut trees. It looked like it was I don't know, I'm gonna call it dumping ground, but more of like grass clippings and things of that nature that were put in that swale, which I think impeded the flow, which, causes it to back up and then stay wet where the wetland vegetation has been growing. So, one of the things that I saw with that being an integral part of the drainage there is, cleaning that up a little bit to have a clear drainage path of the stormwater.
Yeah, that'll be okay for, smaller storms, to make sure that, it gets there. I think they just have problems when we get big storms, so I'm gonna.
I believe, looking at it, that pipe may even, be clogged to some degree.
Well, it's clogged about halfway, and we'd like to
So
keep it clogged, because that's
Yeah,
helping,
it's got no place
that's
to
helping
go.
to hold back a little water.
No, I'm
so.
talking about
Oh.
the pipe that goes under Creek Road in front of that gentleman's parcel.
Yeah,
It appeared to me that area could be opened up and cleaned up to allow the water to flow through that
I know what
area.
you're talking
Beyond it.
about, yeah.
I sent pictures of all that area to our planning secretary, so she has them printed out. My first thought was the same, that as you get toward, there's two creek roads, obviously. Yep, that's what I was thinking of as well, because that area, like I said, where it's now almost an emergent tiny wetland, there's got to be a reason why the water is backing up there. It's not just because of the grade change, it's a little bit lower, but I don't think that's really what's causing it. I think that there's something wrong with the pipe that keeps it backed up.
I would agree with that. I was out there Monday or Tuesday, and that's what I noticed, really looking at it.
But again, I've already stated it, but I can't state it enough. The addition of one home is
Yeah,
not going
It
to,
has nothing to do with this.
Right.
Yeah.
and this is an existing problem, in other words, that's
Right.
independent of
Yeah.
this site.
Right.
But I wanted to make sure that the homeowners who live nearby, the residents, knew that we were taking their, everything very seriously. And I tell you, I drove this site before we opened the first public hearing. I just went like this and out, and I hadn't really noticed, other than the areas there. In the interim, when I walked it, there's of course a kind of a concrete old driveway that I'd suggested that they might need to remove that. But that's actually how they get the mobile homes in and out.
Oh.
This is too tight in terms of in through here. For the site, they're replacing with better, wider and better grade mobile homes.
Right, the applicant, in speaking to him about that, they would have no issue with removing that, but they would prefer to keep it open long enough to replace the whole homes, and then once that's completed, they would close that up.
The reason why Ms. Moss had suggested it should be closed is we don't think that there was ever a permit for it once it became a town road.
Probably so old, right?
Yes, and it's probably not used that much. You can just see a little bit of the surface that's left on it, but it makes sense that that's how they'd be getting the trailers in and out. So in the landscaping that Mr. Povall proposed, if you can see it, right? I might keep going out right there. Those are service berries that he's proposed, amelanchiers. So if you had to utilize it, if you left the driveway in, he'd just have to keep replacing every so often when they replace the things, you have to replace a couple of shrubs along the way. In addition, yes.
I'm sorry. I understand keeping the driveway until you replace all the homes, but if you get rid of it and when you have to replace them again in about 10 years, do you plan on getting the new ones in and the old ones out then?
Well, they would just cut down those shrubs or trees and then just replace
Do
them.
it that way. Okay, thank you.
And I kind of usurped your role. Do you want to go, why don't you walk us through the project changes? Thanks. Sorry.
Do we want to open that?
Yes, first, making a motion to reopen the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay.
I'll start. I'm Bill Povall. I'm the engineer for the applicant, Creek Park. We're here tonight seeking approval for a 22nd home within the park. There is a current license that allows for 22 homes. We believe that was a result of a previous layout or existing homes, where at one point in time there were 22 homes. The applicant is currently in the process of cleaning the park up, replacing the older homes, and in doing so, he's replacing the homes to provide better setbacks to their property lines. And as a result, again, we're here to get the 22nd home in an open area on the northeast corner, or in the northeast corner of the park.
Thank you. Let me start with consultants. Any comments? Mr. Sotero, Ms. Axelson?
Yes, Liz just handed me, and I had forgotten about this, but when we did the seeker circulation, we got a letter from the county health department that said that we have no records of anything here. So are we just going to let that wait and let them deal with it when they apply for a building permit for the new unit, or?
Board?
Good question.
I mean, we discussed this last time, and I know Mr. Povall is going to be meeting with the Department of Health. Obviously, this has been existent, I think they said, since the 70s, the neighbors over here. So there may not be a record at Department of Health, but there's obviously, it's been utilized during this time.
Right.
So how would we condition this so just that they would get?
Well, I mean, we could condition the overall approval based upon getting a.
No, I was thinking maybe of conditioning on it for the CO.
Oh, I would do it. I would do it on the building permit,
Okay.
issuance of the building permit.
Okay.
That there's, a resolution from the county health department. Either there's going to be a brand new system, or they're going to be upgrading the one that's there, or the one that's there is okay. We need something from the Board of Health.
Something, approval for a system.
Some sort of.
Right,
approval.
an approval. I
Have you
guess.
had a chance to meet with the Department of Health yet?
Not at this time.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
That's a good point. Mr. Rodenhouse, any comments? To my right, Ms. DiNapoli.
No comments.
I should have added, Mr. Powell didn't, but this is the landscaping in the dark green that's proposed that would provide some screening. This was conditioned on the area variance going there. I believe these are red maples and amelanchiers, right?
Yep.
Acer river, right. The board should consider, these are all deciduous, whether you want to see any conifers or evergreens in through here, that's all. That's really it. And I think I wrote to everybody, there's existing kind of scrubby stuff in through here, I'll call it. You saw, it's viney, it looks like it's kind of a mess, and I don't know if that's on your property or the other owners. The other owner also has been kind of piling leaves and branches, it looks like, to try to stop the flooding from going over into the backyard and through there. But all we're concerned about tonight is what's on their side. And I want to point out, again, that screening is not required between residential uses, but because the variance is conditioned this way, that's why we need to make sure it's there. Mr. Oliver, any comments?
No comment.
Ms. Dexter?
I wouldn't mind if they maybe swapped out one or two of the deciduous for something a little more year-round, but not to overall change the entire.
And we prefer spruces over pines because pines grow too fast and they lose their screening ability.
Okay.
In addition to changing the soil composition, even though spruces grow slower. Mr. Pickett, any comments?
Could we let them do site work prior to getting the CO to put on the building?
Let them do site work prior to getting the CO.
Landscaping?
No, pad, other type of things, electric and whatever before
No,
he
they'd
puts
have to have
that.
a building
No,
permit.
they have to get a
No.
building permit first.
Okay,
Yeah, it's required.
no comment.
Plan.
Mr. Murphy
No comment.
and Ms. Weiser?
No comment.
Okay, then I think we have to continue this for the time being because we're going to get a change in plans with landscaping, but otherwise, and I think we can get half sets for everybody
Oh, yeah, I don't need a full.
on the next round, for the planning board at least, except
like-
for you'll need 4 full sets
Right.
for Mr. Rodenhausen's office, for
Consultants.
Mr. Sotero's, for our office, and I like to have a big full set too. So six half sizes. And we don't have, last time we requested that you establish the rear yard setbacks, and we just got a survey, so you're still working through that?
Yeah, we just received an updated survey on Monday, I believe, and we do have all the setbacks on there now. So the new plan will show that.
Okay, as soon as you can get us the new plan, if you can get it to us, the way our code is written, it should be provided tomorrow so that we could consider closing the public hearing on the 20th and taking action. If that seems too fast, if you could get it to us early next week, if that's possible?
Yeah, and I think we can actually have it by Friday, because we've actually been working on it.
That'd be
Hey,
good.
Billy, can you go email ours to me?
Sure.
Just this way,
Yep.
we get it, directly, and we can just plot it out ourselves.
Okay, would anyone from the public like to speak about this application?
I have his email.
There being none, may I get a motion to adjourn to the December 20th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And again, just to go over this, just to repeat, DC Planning already weighed in and said that it was a matter of local concern only. And that's it. So we'll see you on the 20th and look forward to the next revision.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. And by the way, thanks for being so responsive and detailed to my email to you, the heads up from the agenda meeting.
Same
Thank
to you, thanks.
We're out of public hearing mode now. The next item on the agenda is workshop, Joseph Steakhouse. The applicant's going to be seeking to rebuild, yay!
Hi, Joe.
The restaurant, known as Joseph Steakhouse at 728 Vellet Avenue. Ironically, right across the street,
Yeah,
well, not
from this
across,
one.
but right around the corner from this.
One house down.
So,
That's perfect.
and I'd like to point out that tonight we are prepared to type the action and refer it. And the reason why we're able to do that is because Mr. Wilson and his architect, Mr. Lockwood, have been in several offline meetings with Ms. Weiser and Ms. DiNapoli and myself and Ms. Moss. So Mr. Lockwood's been very responsive to the comments. Mr. Wilson's been very responsive to the comments. Mr. Wilson would like to be open by May 1st, he says.
Yes.
And I'll also add that I did it, I got a chance to present this to the Chamber of Commerce at my second presentation this year for them, and I have to tell you, everyone was really excited at that meeting to see the plans, to see the outdoor bar, see the outdoor dining area, and to know that you were coming back. So it was the highlight of my presentation, put it that way. So let me turn it over to you guys.
Did you look good?
Same thing with this?
Well, what we're presenting here is a outdoor, as you just heard, outdoor dining and bar area under a pavilion. If you've all had a chance to look at the drawings, you can.
Everyone's excited. Yes, they've all looked, I promise.
All right, well, please. I mean, you could start with your comments at any time then.
So I think I've covered a lot of what you're proposing. I should add that you're all, I was going to use my point as something to point to. You're proposing to pave what is now an unpaved section on the south side of the building.
Oh, boy. Uh-oh. Drainage.
Mm-hmm.
We just heard that there's issues there.
The south side of the building, which was formerly the banquet room, will now become the main, I guess I'll call it restaurant. Then there's a kitchen in between where there was, in the past, interior seating for the former restaurant.
Correct.
And then where the bar was, et cetera, and the outdoor will now become a covered area. It'll be a seasonal restaurant with, I believe you said, a slightly separate menu, maybe a little bit more sandwiches and burgers and things too.
Our outside menu will be a little more lighter dining. Still offer some of our full
Could you
menu.
please use the microphone?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, our outside dining will be a little more of a lighter dining. We haven't finished a menu yet, but we might have the same menu inside and out, but there'll be a lot more lighter everyday items for outside dining.
I'm asking because this is, since people watch us on television, this is an opportunity for you to tell the public that you'll be changing a little bit here. Sorry, I'm going to underline that for you.
Okay. Yeah, well, actually, we're going to probably take off from our menu that we used at the fairgrounds.
Right.
Okay, so it's, at the fairgrounds, we did a lot of sandwich items, also full meal items, but we're going to do a kind of lighter menu. Our whole menu is going to be kind of a lighter menu.
Oh, okay. See more revisions as well.
But we still want to offer our dry aged steaks and our prime rib, but the menu in general is going to be a little more rangier to the lower end.
Great, thank you. So, any comments from our consultants, Ms. Axelson, Mr. Sotero? And by the way, you'll note that there is a gap between where the paving would stop on the applicant's land before it gets into the DOT area.
I know at the agenda meeting, there was concern about the gate that's very close to where Creek Road gets to Violet Avenue, that have people cross there when people might be coming right off of 9G, to maybe move that gate, not have a gate there, and move it back if possible so that they're crossing farther away from that intersection. And then another concern is having enough signage and marking on Creek Road to alert drivers to people going back and forth on foot to get to that parking area.
Yeah, we would love that.
So,
You know, believe it or not, you know, the traffic coming off of 9G on the Creek Road, I mean, it seems like they speed up when they go across that area there, so. And there's a lot of traffic on that road. One of the reasons we were gonna leave the opening where it was, not to create an issue of moving it. I would prefer it farther down myself farther down towards where the bar is, and they have a crossing. And
So-
we would love the town to put some stripes on the road if they would.
So we have a new incoming highway superintendent-elect, and I emailed him just to let him know that this would be something that we'd like to discuss, because by the time we get to this point, he would be in office. And he was on vacation. He just got back while I was gone in Texas for Thanksgiving, so I need to coordinate and set up a meeting with him. In addition, we've never had an occasion to place a crosswalk on a town road. They're always, for whatever reasons, on private roads, internal roads, or on 9 or 9G. So I wanted to have some sort of discussion with the town board about this. I don't know if there's liability or, again, I learn something new all the time. This would be something to learn. But Mr. Wilson and Mr. Lockwood have both discussed locating this further south where it seems like it'd be safer. We're not, the point would be that when you're coming north on Creek, people start slowing down anyway because they've got to stop to take a look at 9G traffic. But when you're heading south on 9G, people have a tendency, if they see cars coming, they speed up to go faster to make sure they can take that left faster. So we want to make sure that pedestrian access is safe. In addition, of course, what we're talking about is accessing the eastern parking area to the main restaurant, that area and through there. So I'll note to self, I will recontact Mr. Fisher, who's, as I said, the incoming highway superintendent. Anything else, Ms. Axelson? Thank you. Mr. Sotero?
I've already covered, I mean, my only concern was, the crosswalk, as you say, and I think that we need to make sure that we cover all the regulations that, pertain to that, so we may need to just run this by AKRF if that's, because, I mean, they're more, familiar with, DOT regs, and, it is a little unusual to have like a crosswalk right in the middle of, not right in the middle of the road, but not at like an intersection. But, I mean, we can do it. It's just that I think we need to make sure that, as, Joe wants to make sure the appropriate, signage is there, because if we approve it, it's on a site plan, there's an issue, we're liable too, so.
Just anecdotally, whenever I've dined there, and that's been many times over the years when it was open, we've always parked across the street and walked over, but
Yeah.
I've been there in the evening when traffic is
No, me too.
much lower.
Yeah.
It's we're talking about the real traffic problems are during the day, and that's when, of course, you probably want to be out on the outside portion of the restaurant.
Do we just, want to make sure that we cover it and everybody's,
Okay.
Covered, but the only other thing, and I think you guys are talking about removing it, but up on the, almost up Creek Road and 9G intersection there at, the point, it looks like there's some existing, maybe pavers or something that are within the property line. Is that to be taken out
Yeah, there's a section, looks like it's
over the property
over
line?
the property, yeah, so we're gonna take it out to the edge of the property.
Okay, that's what I saw there. So I just want to make sure that that's going to come out, because we can't have anything in the right of way. And
Yeah.
and the only other thing that I saw, just quickly, Mike, is down there in the new parking lot where you show built-up asphalt curbs.
Yeah.
If you're going to be pouring concrete anywheres, I would just pour them, as concrete, because built-up asphalt curbs, the first time that, a snowplow hits them, their history.
Right.
So, I mean, if you're going to be pouring concrete, I assume you're going to be pouring concrete for all kinds of things?
I gotta tell you, there's so much rock back there. There's actually rock coming out of the,
Yeah, it's
out of the
outcropping
ground.
out of the parking
If
lot.
you went up to the site right now where we're putting new footings in, it's total rock. That whole thing's on a.
All right, well, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, but I'm just saying, if you put asphalt,
We might have not even do asphalt then, or maybe we might put some cinder block right on, maybe right onto the blacktop or something.
or maybe like a built-up island or something,
Yeah.
because actually, if there is rock over there, you're going to have a problem getting, your landscaping in there that you're showing in there.
Oh, yeah, well, we might.
So you may need to do
we were
built-up
talking about
planters.
Maybe putting a planter in
Yeah,
there.
that might be better.
Better than,
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about
All right.
that already when we started.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
can
we
see
could
how much
build it
I've
up.
been jackhammering back down that building
Yeah.
right now. It's a lot of rock.
Are those trees along the southerly parking lot, are those existing?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Okay, so really, it's just, the crosswalk on Oak, and we talked about that.
Thank you.
Sorry, am I
No,
Am I
is it
bothering you?
1,000 degrees in here, or,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hot from the city.
It's that, really? Menopause again, sorry, okay. Mr. Rodenhausen, comments? Ms. Weiser, let me start with you.
First of all, I'm just really excited about this, and I can't wait till you open. I want to be the first customer. My only recommendation is that you reconsider the typeface on your sign. I know that your sign has an iconic significance to your loyal patrons, but I wonder if you might consider something a little more legible and yet still in keeping with the feel of your original design. I have a couple of typefaces that I thought might look very nice.
Actually, Michael made a comment, and I'd probably like to resubmit on signage at some point.
Okay.
I'd like to do just the Joseph a little larger and then put the steakhouse underneath in smaller print.
make it more-
So I think that there are a couple of typefaces that might be a little bit more legible.
Oh,
yet
okay.
still- But yet still keeping with the feel of
Yeah,
your
take a look at what she
sign.
found.
Okay.
So this.
They're nice.
The.
They look sort of like
company
they're
makes-
easy to read.
And I can give these to you too. The company is called Filmotype, and then the font is called Horizon. I can give those to you as well. Right? And it keeps with your sign. So Filmotype Horizon, and I'll just give these to you as well. Filmotype also makes one called Lakeside, so it still just feels like it has the same vibe as your sign.
And then you have my favorite.
And then the favorite, and it's actually,
My
this
personal
typeface is actually called Cocktail Shaker.
Woohoo!
It's actually called Cocktail Shaker, so I thought you might like to see some other.
That's your favorite. I'm
Other iterations.
shocked.
Is that nice? Because see how it works also in just other iterations? So that might be something that's a little bit more legible, and you can have them all if you like.
It has that
Great.
swinging 50s vibe going
Yeah.
on for it. I'm actually familiar with that font, by the way. That's the reason why I like it so much. Is it's when Joe ran the restaurant and had all the Sinatra themed stuff in
Yeah,
there. When I
yeah.
saw that, I was like, oh yeah, that does match. Anne's right. That's very good. Anyway, it's just to consider. I said I'm not even sure that you probably just said make a sign and someone proposed it with that font and you said sure. So anyway, excellent research there. Mr. Murphy, comments?
I'm happy, obviously, that we're rebuilding. I have one quick question. We're gonna need variances because everything's kinda right there. Setbacks or anything, is he gonna have to redo anything?
Not that I know of, because, so this is a pre-existing business, and even though there was a fire there, Ms. Moss has, I guess I'll say opined, that's a better term, that because he got into the process already to do rebuilding, they're rebuilding right now, repairing, I should say, with the roof and stuff, that the business has not lapsed over a year.
No,
So-
I'm just happy
Yeah.
that I just didn't want.
So no variances. We
Start and then all of a sudden have
Ms.
to go back.
Ms. Moss and I met with you 3 months ago or 2 months ago, and we did not identify any variances required.
Actually, what we're proposing to build is actually going on the same footprint of what the two-story building was.
Yeah.
We're actually building less than what was there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just didn't want you to go forward and then have to go back.
No, we don't- we did that at our first meeting, I promise. But yeah, that would be not where we want to go, put it that way. Anything else? Mr. Pickett, comments?
My ideas along, I like what's going, really look forward to May 1st. My idea was, on your patio area, as you're sitting out there, would it be possible to work with county, whoever, to get some guardrails up there kind of protecting any errant
You mean on the Creek Road side or
on both sides on Violet? It'd be about 60 foot of guardrail just to protect.
Actually, the road goes away from the property line when you come off of Creek Road. It doesn't go towards the building, it goes away from the building,
Okay.
all right? And the building was a lot closer to the road than what we're building now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
But then you had
and
a
we've
building
never had,
protecting you.
never had anything go on the property, and
Okay.
that building's been there almost 100 years,
Okay.
okay?
Because you do have a concrete fountain that'll protect you from any
Deflect.
error, and somebody coming in, like, didn't quite make the turn, coming off of Violet, but,
There's hedges all in the front
Fences
there.
and hedges.
Yeah.
Fences and hedges are there. And Pete actually brought this issue up too, you know, whether or not it would, since you're not going to have outdoor dining. And my response then was, you know, I'm fortunate enough to have a place in New York City as well. I'm not there very often. I'm up here almost all the time. But when I'm there, we do eat out at a lot of restaurants. And I've never seen, it's probably happened, but I've never seen it, put it that way. Because out in the city, you're not sitting in some beautiful garden. You're basically sitting on the street. I mean, I have friends who like doing this. For me, it's like, because you have traffic and all the smells, et cetera. But these
like
are,
the
it's,
Champs-Élysées, yeah.
yeah,
Sit down.
yes. And so, while we're supposed to be planning for safety, I don't think you can plan for every eventuality. Yes, Mr.
Well,
Zadaro?
we're going to have a fence, right? There's going
Yeah.
to be a fence.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying we should do this, but in another town that I represent, we had an application for an ice cream place, and they had a large area, you know, for seating that was close to actually like a main, you know, road, you know, busy. So what they did was on the inside of the, I think it's going to be a 4-foot fence or
4 foot, yeah.
So what they did was they had a 4-foot fence also. So what they were concerned about, the potential for a car, whatever happens, veering off the road, there's people, you know, sitting there having ice cream, blah, 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 blah. So what they did was every so often on the inside of the fence, they put a bollard every, I don't remember what it was, 20 feet or so, just so that if by some crazy chance a car veered off the road, there might be a better chance of them going through the fence and hitting like a bollard versus hitting, you know, people. Now, I'm just, you know, offering that up, that was something that we did in another town, that the planning board, you know, like, had thought of, so.
And this would be something for the board to consider.
You know,
I take it, we're thinking about this because of the unique location of this building, because it's at a triangular
you know, and maybe
corner?
it's just more of at the point area, you know, maybe not the whole thing.
Yeah, 'cause
I don't know,
it's
it's
away
something we can
from the
think about, but
building.
everybody can think about
There's,
it.
Could the county
under
do it?
this property, there's a sign, there's a
At first the
pole
sign,
sign in front of the hedges, and then you have the hedges, then you have a step up where the pavers are, is raised up. I mean, and like I said, I'm familiar with this property for over 30 years.
Yeah.
I've never had any vehicle even
No,
come
I
close.
mean, I know, it's just
You know, it's-
like a one in, you know,
I mean,
million maybe shot,
yeah,
I don't know.
You have people dying on sidewalks, on Route 9 here, are more susceptible to get hit than getting hit on this road here.
I get it.
but it's something for the board to consider. If it's closer to the point, I think Mr. Pickett made the point that there's a concrete fountain that's proposed that would probably protect you there. It'd be, I guess really more, no one can see me if I do this, but in this area, you're talking about where the
bar.
Yeah, closer to the bar area, but
Yeah.
that doesn't seem like it'd be a natural place for there to be an accident. I think it would be the point. But again, this is for the board to consider as we go along. Anything else, Mr. Pickett?
That's it.
Ms. Dexter?
I am so happy that you're rebuilding.
Thank you.
I'm very excited. I love your idea of the new sign with just Joseph's. It's going to be a little bit reminiscent of Frederick's.
Yeah, it's gonna be just a little, yeah, I like the idea with just the name.
Joseph's, yeah, I like that, and Steakhouse below that.
You know, just another comment on this protective area. On that concrete patio, we're actually gonna have large stones
Well, I was thinking about that.
Of
It's
going-
funny that you say that.
that
I was-
we're gonna outline this with. So there would be some big.
'Cause you could
we're
use those-
taking them that we've dug up.
No shortage of rock, no
Shortage
shortage of rock.
I was thinking that also, if you could get
We're
Lombardi
gonna
or
line,
something. Lombardi can probably find you a bunch of fairly good-sized
Now, we
rock.
have a lot of them on site right now.
He's growing his own.
Yeah.
He's growing his own.
Talked about taking these right now and just putting them one
They
side.
could be like a landscape-like feature or something like that.
Right.
Put a landscape around where the patio and
Yep.
the fountains, or the waterfall's gonna be.
That would look even better.
Add a decorative element of large
Yeah.
stones as
Yeah.
protection and
Yeah.
visual. Good.
So it's interesting that we're having this, because that was actually one of my biggest, when I looked at this in the redo, the first thing that hit me was that although it's in the same footprint, and the people are going to be outside without the wall, so I was actually going in the same direction as Mr. Pickett. The thoughts I had were maybe hiding 1 or 2 or 3 bollards behind the hedges. That provides something. But the other thought that I had is on Route 9 here, in front of like Hyde Park Pizza and the Chinese place, they've got these beautiful, very big, solid planters.
Concrete.
So either rocks or these big, gigantic concrete planters that they've got little mini trees coming out of. Again, it's a decorative element, but it would go far. And I just thinking about that, because now you're talking about open air and not a whole lot of stuff keeping people around, and it is kind of a, I hate that intersection, I really do. So whatever you think you might be able to do, I think would go far.
A lot of these vinyl, the vinyl fences, they'll have a metal pole, will be
True.
concrete.
Yes,
with a
I mean, you
metal
do
pole
have-
there. So that fence is pretty torrent to.
No, I understand. It's just funny that Mr. Pickett brought that up, and that was one of the first things that I thought of when I looked at that, just like maybe needing to somehow protect people a little bit more. So it sounds like you're thinking about potential things to put in there just to add some additional barriers, so to speak.
Yes, we will.
Whatever you come up with, I'm sure will be beautiful. 2 other comments. I absolutely love that you are reusing your round stoop. I think that is so cool.
Yeah.
And it will just become such a nice focal point, and yet it's got the history in it. And then my question is, with the bar area, is it always going to be open? Or will you be putting some kind of barrier down to, during the winter, during huge thunderstorms? Are you going to?
No, this is gonna be all weatherproof, what we build in here. So just actually the only thing that's gonna be coming out of there will drain, in the wintertime, drain the water all out of the sinks. Everything gets locked up, and there'll be locked cabinets.
Okay,
So,
but you're not actually looking to like sequester it somehow with
not
the,
right now, no.
okay.
No.
So in the summer, it's raining,
Well,
what happens?
Well,
Everything's under a roof, pretty
Yeah.
much, right?
This is a roof.
Not quite all of it.
This is a roof.
Well, I guess that's my question. is
Well,
because I
There's a
couldn't quite
front roof
tell.
that goes over the bar.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the pavilion, the other roof attaches to that roof and goes out,
Okay,
okay?
right. It doesn't cover the entire width of the old footprint, though, right?
The entire,
Yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
It does?
The
Yeah.
pavilion covers the entire width of the old footprint.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
That was still sidewalk going around to the entrance.
It's on the elevations.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
that's just it. I was trying to figure out from the elevations if there were any gaps between that pavilion and the bar area.
No, it's
There's
all,
not.
no, they're tied together.
Okay,
Roofs.
it's
Yeah.
just me, of course, but
No,
I'm just
no.
trying to figure
But
out.
the pavilion doesn't extend all the way to the fountain.
No,
No.
no.
It goes
The
out.
bar,
It goes out probably
like 30 feet.
30 feet from the fountain.
Right. Okay,
And in that area,
It comes out 32 feet out?
Yeah, 30.
32 feet out and 30 feet across.
and you were proposing in that area that you would have dining with like umbrellas?
On
Or-
the other, yeah, we'll put tables out there with umbrellas out.
But it's nice weather.
okay.
In other words, you can sit outside, really outside without a roof over your head
Without
or
roof over-
in a roof
or
over
you
your
can
head.
sit underneath the roof area.
Well, it just sounds absolutely, like it just breath of fresh air and something that Hyde Park needs. It's a perfect area. I love the idea of the new menu.
Oh, we had a few, even when I had the restaurant board, we had a few tables up in the front on that patio.
Right.
And we used to have people go outside and eat out there.
Sure, sure. But now it's a focal point. Now it's,
Oh, yeah.
it will be a destination, I can assure you.
I think our bar outside will do it.
Right.
Will be a focal point itself.
Right. So I guess I'm very excited about this, and I just had those questions. And that's all.
Just put a little plaque on the back seat for one of them from Mr. Dupree, that's all. Mr. Oliver?
So a couple of comments, mainly regarding about the new outdoor area. I think now is a great time to really take a look at it. I think it's going to be a great addition to the restaurant that was there. I'm not sure where I read it, but I read somewhere that people will pay a lot more to enjoy eating a fine steak outside with fire and water. So if you can possibly add like a fire.
A fire pit.
I didn't know that.
I don't know where I read it, but
They've already had the fire.
so you could do like a natural gas fire element or a or propane, maybe do.
You don't have gas, though, you probably have propane only, right?
Propane.
So if you could do maybe like a fireplace at the end of the gable, that's maybe like a see-through, and maybe plan for some other natural or propane gas hookups, so that you can maybe extend your season, especially in fall nights when it cools off quick.
Well, we're gonna put some heating up and
Okay.
that ceiling up there. Some type, we haven't decided what type yet, but probably some type of radiant heat.
Okay.
Just so on a hot, a cold night that we can get the temperature so it's comfortable out there.
And the other comment was, I've seen a bunch of other local restaurants doing this, and I think it might add to the ambiance outside, is if you, in those areas you're talking about doing annual plantings, if you make that maybe an herb garden, mix some vegetables in, you can throw that into your your recipes.
Oh, yeah, the farm to table
And,
movement.
Nice.
You know,
Like, we used to plant, I had one of our chefs used to every year plant basil.
Yeah.
And on the side of the building, we had basil and eggplant. We'd have enough for the whole year.
Nice, nice.
those are my comments, and I'm
It's a great comment.
Yeah.
looking forward to it, and I think it's gonna be a great addition to what was there, so thank you.
Thank you.
That's a smart comment, and it's also business friendly, because you're right. I noticed there are a lot of restaurants, more and more, that are doing that herbal, tomato, eggplant, whatever thing, so you get the sense that this is just picked when you go inside, right? Ms. DiNapoli?
I love the idea of the farm to table. It continues the conversation we had offline about, reinventing the restaurant now that you have this wonderful opportunity. And it makes it fresh and new, and I like that idea. I also like the idea, I don't remember who suggested, maybe in lieu of some boulders, if you did, like they have on 9 by the pizza place, the big boulders with some plants and/or trees, and again, that's a very fresh, new look. It all screams exactly what you want people to know, because you have a new name, in a way, by accenting basically just Joseph's. And I think that kind of all pulls together. I do have 2 practical questions. When I was looking at the plan now, I noticed that your dumpster is right by the gate where the guests will be walking from the parking lot to your restaurant. Oh, good. Because I didn't think that was the first thing you wanted people to see.
The dumpster's going, if you see that big open area over there,
In the
it's
back,
going in
yeah.
the far back of our park, that right there.
That makes me feel better.
Where the snow storage is located?
That's what he's indicating, yeah.
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 Okay, so
That'll have to be shown.
Do I have to show it on my plan?
go through your next,
Yeah.
yes, go through your next question, then I'll get back to this. Go through your next question.
My second question, where there's the parking behind the main restaurant, not across the street, where, and I'm channeling Bob here, where are you putting the snow?
where are we putting the snow?
Snow.
In the back, yeah.
Yeah, we will, normally, when we get snow, it'd get pushed to one corner back here.
You have to show it on your
Right.
plan,
Or where we put the snow?
where you're putting the snow.
So, yes. Liz?
Just a couple more words. Lights, I'm thinking you want to attract attention to yourself and your outdoor area in terms of little decorative lights. We'll also tell drivers that there's an enclosed area there with people.
You mean low-level lighting? Like along the
Yes, like-
perimeter, or?
Like small lights along the fence? Or, yes, Christmas.
No.
trees.
Stop that.
Oh, no, really? Okay.
George. George just almost got killed.
Consider adding some lighting. She's right, at night, like during the summer, something low-level, maybe solar powered, I don't know. Just consider it, but that's a good idea. We really are planning here. We're trying to make sure the business succeeds.
Something smart
Or
and
Pete just
new.
mentioned torches.
Oh, on this,
Torches?
on the side over here?
Yeah.
What about a little light head?
Right, you don't want to do that.
We can maybe put some lights right on the,
Yeah, on the post, maybe.
Just consider something that would give it an arresting look, you know.
Maybe on the post caps that kind of shine down
Yeah.
on the
So-
fence.
Now, so we're going to take the action tonight in just a moment, but I want to make sure, because I say this to everybody, finalize where you want to put stuff and make sure it's on that's on the plan, because Ms. Moss, putting it politely, is a strict constructionist, and by that I mean, we changed the law a while back so that if some things are moved a little bit here and there, she can say it's de minimis, it's not that big.
Yep.
She almost always confers with me on this to get my opinion on it, but it's really her call. But if, say, the dumpster is shown on the site plan in one location and you say it's going to be on the other, she won't issue a CO unless you have a site plan amendment, and we don't want you going through that process.
we're gonna move I wanna move the dumpster farther away from the outside dining here anyhow.
Put it on the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, that could be a condition, so you don't have to keep printing up new plans, but just make sure that you know where everything finally is going to be. And materials, I don't think that if you change from pavement to something else, Ms. Moss, as long as it's the surface that's paved, that it's impervious, it should be okay, but we need to check on that. So if you, just make certain that we have as much information from Ms. Moss as possible. Because once it's, yeah, but in other words, if you're going to put in boulders, you could show the places for boulders. She's going to be happy with that, but if you decide to do bollards, show the bollards on the site plan.
Correct, yeah.
And the specific location, because
Yeah.
she won't, yeah, that's if you decide to do it. You already said that the fence has,
Steel posts and.
yes, steel post in it.
Yeah.
But I don't think they'd have to show things like the planters if they decide to go like with a big, heavy concrete planter, would they? Because that's kind of movable.
It would need to be shown, if you're going to propose that, so our code requires landscaping for every 17 spaces. And so the landscaping that you see around the secondary sign, that it's where Chris was talking about putting in herbs, et cetera, if that was to be a planter, you should show that as a planter rather than planting. But on the inside, if you have pots and stuff, that's not part of site plan. It's just, if it's going to satisfy the requirement for the landscaping within the parking area, if that's going to be planters, just make sure that those are labeled as planters.
We're gonna put planters.
Okay, because I know that'll make Tad happier.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, on the inside, put marigolds, geraniums, whatever you want, in pots, make it look more European. So I don't have any other comments, so we need to set the public hearing, but I would suggest that because we have a variety of agencies to refer to, that we set this for the first meeting in January, which I don't know the date off the top of my head. Thank you, Ms. Whitman.
What was that? The date?
January 4th. So making a motion to set the public hearing for January 4th.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And now who has this resolution?
I do.
Thank you.
Welcome. Town of Hyde Park Planning Board, resolution typing action and referring the application Joseph Steakhouse, December 6, 2017, resolution number 2017-53. Whereas, now therefore it be resolved, that the planning board hereby, 1, classifies the project as a type 1 action under SECRA, 2, declares its intent to serve as lead agency in a coordinated review of the project under SECRA. 3, directs its secretary to refer the application materials and a lead agency letter to the New York State Department of Transportation, the Dutchess County Department of Health, the Roosevelt Fire Department, the National Park Service, and the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation as involved or interested agencies, and 4, directs its secretary to refer the application materials to the Dutchess County Department of Planning and Development for their review pursuant to Section 239M of the General Municipal Law.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, yes. Aha!
Oh.
Then, let's see, I need to revise the original motion, and that was made by Mr. Murphy. Can you revise that to January 3rd rather than the 4th?
I would like to revise that to January 3rd.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We're now at the public hearing for January 3rd.
January 3rd now.
Yes, sorry about that. That's why I didn't have a calendar in front of me. And
All right, I'll be here.
just to remind everyone, this is automatically a type 1 action because it's located adjacent to the national park sites, Valkill, and on the historic register. So we'll have comments back from them, and if there's anything you guys need from us in the interim,
Okay.
let us know. We're happy to meet again. Otherwise, we'll see you in a month.
All right, thank you.
Mike, I'm going
meantime-
to jot down some of the small things that, we talked about, and I'll send something out on Friday, and I'll copy you.
All
along
right.
With, the planning board.
That's
Just
perfect, yeah.
Basically, same stuff we talked about.
Yeah, I took
Yeah.
notes here, but yeah,
Thanks, Mike.
that'd be great.
And I just want to take a look at that parking lot tomorrow, just as far as making sure we're not going to create any, drainage issues.
Yes, and I want to talk I've been on the site lots because I've done events back in the banquet room as well, and when it rains, there's not much place where the water goes right now. You can tell it's compacted soil on top of rock, basically.
Yeah.
Impervious
It rolled
already.
right
Yeah.
down to Great Brothers.
Yeah, so, it may not be a problem, we just want to look at it.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm going to talk to the incoming highway superintendent and I think Mr. Plansky before I contact AKRF, just to see where the town would be on this.
Okay.
All right?
You've also got DOT involved.
Yes.
They're going to be on the distribution. You might have bowlers or something, and they might be interested in the intersection and what the traffic flow is coming around the corner and whether that creates a safety hazard, that crossing there.
Right, we won't know until we hear back from them. So, okay, and if we need to meet with DOT, we can set that up as well.
Yeah, I would suggest, I guess, hold off on moving the gate until we talk to them, or is that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
They're going to see where the crosswalk is, where the gate is proposed,
right,
and we'll find out from their comments.
okay,
All righty?
fantastic. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
And in the meantime, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, anything else to celebrate?
Thank you.
See you then.
All right.
Happy holidays, right.
There you go. Cover everything.
Covers them all.
The next item on the agenda is Right Homes. Applicants are seeking approval for a re-subdivision, and we cleared up everything when Mr. Martin gave us new plans last time. We have a resolution, we're prepared to take action tonight. Mr. Martin, would you like to address the board, or was that enough?
That's enough, that's good news.
So we closed the public hearing on this one, and any comments or questions from the board or consultants?
Just that I concurred with the email that came out about demarcating the lines of the open space. That we did that for another subdivision where we had
Yeah, I-
put in boulders and/or evergreens to
So what
mark it.
happens is that they've used the existing stone walls, as Ernie said last time, they make good neighbors, I think you said, so
Yeah.
to demarcate the open space, but in the areas back in through here, there's no way for a homeowner to necessarily know, and so I had forgotten that when we have open space as part of individual landowners' parcels, that's what we require, because it's been that long since we've
Yes.
done this.
Yes.
So Ms. Moss picked up on it, which makes
Good.
perfect sense
Yes, good.
as we go along. So, and Mr. Rodenhausen revised the resolution accordingly. So we're ready to consider approval. Who has this resolution?
I do.
You do.
Resolution of conditional approval, Right Home re-subdivision, December 6, 2017, Resolution 16-46B. Whereas, Now therefore be it resolved that the planning board hereby reaffirms its prior determination of non-significance adopted on January 16th, 2008, and be it further resolved that the application for subdivision approval to re-subdivide 3 existing lots located on Reservoir Road, tax parcels number 6167-04-732-397, comma, -706-377 and -714426 in the Greenbelt District known as subdivision plat entitled, quote, Final Plat for Right Homes LLC, unquote, prepared by Casey Engineering and Land Surveying, PC, dated October 10, 2016, last revised November 1st, 2017, is approved subject to the following terms and conditions: payment of all outstanding fees and escrow, approval by the planning board and the planning board attorney of deed restrictions for the open space area in each lot. 3, approval by planning board attorney of access and maintenance agreements for the shared driveway. 4, addition to the final plat of post or boulders at each point where the open space direction changes on any lot where no stone wall exists to delineate the area of dedicated open space. And 5, removal of site distance easement label from the final plat. Be it further resolved that no building permit shall be issued until the zoning administrator has received proof of the proper recording of the deed restrictions and the access and maintenance agreements referred to herein with the Dutchess County Clerk.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do you want a copy of the resolution, Ernie? Do you want my copy by chance, or did you get everything down? It'll be emailed to you anyway. Yep.
Yeah, as long as it's emailed, it's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And good luck.
Okay, have a good holiday, everyone.
You too.
You too.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good luck.
Congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
The next item on the agenda is a sign permit application for Jungle Bungle, and I just realized this must be you ladies back there waiting so patiently all this
Okay.
time. Did we lose someone?
No, they're just out walking the hall.
Okay.
Restless, yeah.
She's very good, though.
Thank you.
So
Very long day.
first, explain what your business is because there are people watching.
It's a secondhand store. It's a secondhand store.
And the merchandise you sell is?
Everything, almost everything and anything that people can use. We always tell people, don't throw away, don't throw away. I can think of
Recycle.
10 people, yes, for every item that you want to throw away. And we've had so much fun. We've been here for a couple months, and we've met the most amazing, beautiful, lovely, caring people here. They really care about each other, and I love that.
Thank you.
That's great.
Really,
We feel that Hyde Park is a great place as well.
we do too.
Nice to hear that.
Thank you.
So the zoning administrator opined that this is a shopping center. Each of these sites is a separate parcel, but they all share parking and they're under one ownership. So they're required to have design unity. Ms. Moss circulated 2 resolutions, one recommending approval as long as they change it so that it's framed in white to better match the other signs on the site.
Yeah, I don't.
Or
Actually, our sign is the only one that's up.
the one next door to you, the recycling center, is also up. That's what she was looking at. It's got like a dark border around it.
I
So her
see.
suggestion was just to add a white border, but that's for the board to discuss
I mean,
tonight.
can
Yes,
I say
go
some
ahead.
things?
Yes.
Okay. Our sign is very personal. I mean, we kind of think that it really represents who we are. She painted the sign. We're not really about fancy borders and everything else, which is why we left it blank to begin with. You know, we looked at it and we said, oh, should we put something around? Should we put a picture? No, because the store itself means nothing, which is why we left it blank. A thrift shop, it's a dime a dozen. And so what was special about the store is the people, which is what she put in the letters, which is why she changed the colors. That represents the diversity of the people, the circumstances that we've met, have walked into the store. And so it's about the people. It's not about the store. And we love the sign. We think it really represents who we are.
I'm just telling you that our code, what we do up here is not always what we want to do personally, if this makes any sense to you.
Yes, yes.
We administer a code that's written by the elected officials. That's all we do. There are some areas where we can use discretion, but you're supposed to have what's called design unity with signs, other signs within a shopping center. And what you just said is basically that your sign is unique and different.
We
And
did use the same sign.
right, and that
Up
was,
there, which didn't have.
and
border.
that sign was put up before the next one. In addition, that sign was, let's just say Ms. Moss personally did not like it, but it seemed to fit the business that was there at the time, which was wood furniture, I believe.
Yes, 12 Pines Furniture.
Right, right, stuff like that. So again, I'm going to turn this over to the board, but it's up to the board to kind of figure out how to take this application, and we can always adjust these resolutions. So Ms. Dexter, let me start from my inner right this time, since you were the first person that looked like you wanted to comment.
So it's interesting that this site is very interesting. So to me, the unity in the site is the fact that the buildings are all the same color, and you can tell that they all belong together. The signs, there's only 2 signs that can be shown facing 9G. And the old sign that we approved that was not colored green and did not really match the next sign that went over where we made them put the border on. My feeling is that the unity is, it's very hard to do unity when you have 2 signs. So I don't want them to look exactly the same. But from my perspective, to reuse a sign for a shop reuses everything that comes in, it just seems appropriate. And to try to have to put it in a box, so to speak, by putting a border around it, doesn't buy me anything when I see that. It's no more unified there than if you didn't put a border around it. That's my thoughts.
Mr. Oliver, comments?
I'd have to agree. And when I look at that sign, I think if we put a white border or a black border around it, I don't think it's gonna give the unity that maybe that our code requires. I think the color of the buildings matching is significant enough for me.
I just want to point out that the code does not require design unity of structures, it requires design unity of signs, that's all. But your points are well taken. Ms. DiNapoli, comment?
This is a real dilemma. Levity is always good. It's getting late. I have no problem with the sign. I really don't. So I'm willing to just leave it the way it is.
Okay, let me start from my inner left. Mr. Pickett.
I'll agree with my colleagues, I like it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Murphy.
I plead guilty to being on the committee that wrote the ordinance, even though he won't admit it.
I was on it, I admit it, I was on it.
Under cross-examination.
I was on
Nick
it.
said he was on it. We were both on it, and I'm okay with it, too.
I mean, I want to point out, that was already in the sign before we amended it. Victoria was with us as
That's a
well.
good cop, I don't take that.
No, but the design unity was always in there, and we weren't supposed to make huge changes to it. Ms. Weiser, any comments?
I'm in the camp of design unity, but I do think with a little bit of modification, the way Ms. Moss had described, just with a border, can help with that. So it's not asking for too much, but I do think I think it's important for us to have a little bit of design unity within the town. So.
I'm on the same way, but I think we're going to be outvoted. So
Okay, I just had to say.
If I counted right, it looks like it's 5-2. So, and it's not because I don't like your sign or don't want your business to succeed, I promise. It's just as the chair, I'm supposed to be, but I can always be outvoted. So who has this resolution?
I do.
I think we need to take out the
Second
the two.
whereas, first whereas under be it resolved.
Yeah, the first and the second whereases, and then you can read the resolution. And Ms. Whitman will do a voice vote on this one. I know you love that. You haven't done one of those before.
I think she's excited for it.
Okay, Mr. Oliver.
Resolution recommendation regarding sign permit pursuant to Town Code Section 108-24.3A 4D, 874 Violet Avenue Jungle Bungalow wall sign. resolution number 2017-51, whereas be it resolved, the board hereby recommends the zoning administrator issue the sign permit for Jungle Bungle as submitted by Reina Rahi, and be it resolved that the board hereby recommends the zoning administrator issue the sign permit for Jungle Bungle as submitted on Reina Rahi for amended on the record at the planning board meeting.
Let's take them, sorry, just as submitted by Reina Rahi, and amended should be taken out too, I apologize.
As submitted
Is that the end of it all set?
at the planning board meeting of December 6, 2017.
And Chan is second, oh, Ann is seconded?
Yeah.
Do you want to call the roll, please?
Did you remove this, after be it resolved, did you remove both whereas?
Yes.
Aye.
Mr. Oliver?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Nay. Nay. I have to, I feel compelled to, sorry, I do. He's got to stand with the zoning board. Well, it's also, so signs are, when we say we hate signs, we don't hate signs, we like the way they look. But it's a
So
hard
hard.
thing for us
It's
up
so
here
hard.
because
I know.
everybody wants a different sign, but our
Yes.
code says something besides that, so.
I know.
But at any rate, we wish you luck, continued luck with the business,
Thank you.
success.
Thank you.
And
Welcome to Hyde Park.
Welcome to Hyde
Thank you.
Park.
Thank you
And,
very much.
Despite the fact that I voted nay, doesn't mean again that we don't support the business. I'll make it over there and stop in and say hello.
Thank you.
Are you all related?
Welcome.
Yes, this is my daughter.
Okay.
And this is my other daughter.
Wow.
You want to say hi? I know she wants to say hi in here. Say hi.
They get shy when you do that.
Friend from college.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you. And it's nice to meet you too over there, young lady,
Thank you very
too.
much and have a beautiful holiday.
You too. You too. Thank you.
Good luck.
We'll be there.
Say bye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is
Empire Auto Solutions.
Empire Auto Solutions.
Thank you.
That was cute. Is Empire Auto Solutions, as I pointed out in the language of the resolution, the recommendation we made last time, it had a specific telephone number on there, and it turns out the telephone number was already taken. So they revised the, I know, can you believe that? Yeah. So they revised the sign. Now they actually have a telephone number, and when they did that, they also, if you'll remember, he's both selling cars as well as operating a livery service. So they did two numbers, one for the sales office and the other for the livery. So I revised the original resolution, and someone has that.
I do.
Thank you.
Resolution to revise prior resolution recommending assurance of sign permit pursuant to the Town Code, Section 108-24.3AD4D. Whereas, be it resolved, the board revises its early resolution and again recommends the zoning administrator issue a sign permit for Empire Auto Solutions based on the drawings by Timely Signs, latest revision date of 11/10/2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries. The last item we rephrase it, the last application per se, is the enclave at Hyde Park. We have a recommendation from the engineer for bond amounts as required for the infrastructure improvements. Mr. Sotero and the applicant's representatives kind of had a back and forth for a while about this, because this has been going on a while. These also have been reviewed, I believe, by the town attorney as well. Everything has been reviewed and re-reviewed.
Well, the estimates he didn't review,
Oh,
but
okay.
he's working on agreements that go along with the estimates. So he'll be coordinating with the town board on the bonds. We just have to approve the estimates.
Okay.
Amounts.
Correct. So
Amounts.
this is really a recommendation to the town board.
Right,
They
to-
accept the bonds in these amounts.
In these amounts.
In addition, I don't know if anybody else has had a chance to see this, but Mr. Rodenhausen has signed off on all the various.
Oh.
He did. It was great.
Operations, easements, whatever.
That was probably a lot to plow through.
Did you get writer's cramp?
Reader's cramp.
Yeah, reader's
Who
cramp.
owned what to where.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm trying to say is that
Twice.
for those, right, For those of us who are looking forward to seeing the enclave start, they're down to just a few conditions left remaining to satisfy,
That's amazing.
which is pretty, so I like to say that shows great collaboration from our consultants as well as the applicant's representatives, because that was a lot to get through. So
Well, and
I
the
think-
houses are down too, except for the
I've been
one.
watching that, yeah.
Modified clubhouse.
Um,
already?
That's great.
And in addition, before we read this resolution, we did work out a way with Mr. Westermeyer so that a spec house can be built. It's not going to have running water or sewer, so of course it can't be occupied, but you can do everything except flush and turn it on as you go through, so for the purposes of selling,
great.
selling everything. Because normally he couldn't give a building permit
Right,
unless there's
right.
going to be some way, right.
Right.
Then once they're sold, what happens to the spec house? Do they tear it down or?
No, that spec
retro?
house will be offered for sale as
Will
well.
be- Okay.
No, they're just not gonna hook up. I mean, they're gonna have all the plumbing
Oh,
in the
it'll be all
house.
plumbed.
They're just
okay.
not gonna make the hookup to the street.
I'm with
That's
her.
all.
I thought they were just putting up like a
Oh, no,
shell,
I'm
like-
sorry.
like
No.
It's a spec house, but
Oh, good.
yeah, it's not a fake house.
The movie set.
It's going to be one that'll be offered for sale. It's just that it won't have all the hookups done yet. So who has this resolution?
That'd be me.
Thank you.
Resolution to accept estimates for performance bonds, resolution number 16-49E. Whereas, now therefore be resolved that the planning board hereby accepts the following estimates for financial security for infrastructure cost to be provided by the applicant. 1, sewer plant in the amount of $355,300. 2, water plant in the amount of $319,000. 3, road construction. Original scope of work in the amount of $315,000. 4, road construction, additional work, 9/20/17, in the amount of $190,000. Be further resolved that the planning board recommends to the town board that it accept performance bonds in said amount subject to approval as to the form and substance by the attorney to the town.
Is there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Pete, for working on this. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of October 18th, 2017. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yep.
Yep, yeah, it took a while.
Cynthia and I were going back and forth through those too. Making a motion to approve them?
So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And then has everyone had a chance to take a look at the planning board dates for 2018?
Yes.
Yep.
Please note that we eliminated
2?
two because of where they fell. Basically, one is on the day before Thanksgiving, which seemed silly.
Yeah,
And the other was
July 4th.
July 4th, which seems really foolish.
Very, yes.
So making a motion to adopt those dates?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any other business from anyone?
I will tell you though, that one year, and I don't remember when, but we did have a meeting on Thanksgiving Eve. Were you?
True.
Did we?
I don't remember what it was, but we had.
We did it,
And it
yes.
was for something special
Yes,
that had to get done.
yes.
Remember.
Are you baking
We're going
some
way
mincemeat
back.
pies or something?
We're going like 8 years
That's
back.
for us, that's for us old timers.
Yeah, I was there, but I just don't remember.
Oh, you were there.
That was back in the tough.
Well,
days.
I'll point out, let's make the proviso.
Believe me, I'm not advocating that.
No.
that one-
Okay.
Let's just make the proviso that if we need to set a special meeting, if we can get quorum for any particular application, we will. We do that.
We could do that, yes.
Anne's reminding me, she says that I was here for that one, and it's not in my memory anymore, but it was a special meeting, I think, for somebody or something that needed to be done.
One of those
so.
big projects.
Anyway, Mr. Rodenhausen, when do you anticipate Victoria will be returning? Are you here through January?
She will be back in January.
Wow,
And after
good
all
to see
these
you.
applications he's had to handle,
I know.
that will be the last baby that she'll have too.
No.
Unfortunately.
Did you make a motion to adjourn?
May I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Media Solutions.
For everybody?
Quick, go for water.
Yeah.